Darkness pressed in from every side, thick and motionless, like the weight of deep ocean water. Smith's first breath came with effort, his throat dry and raw, lungs barely cooperating. A distant hum vibrated beneath him, the floor, metal, and uneven, cold against his cheek. His eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the reddish pulse of emergency lights. One dim glow flickered above, dying in slow, irregular beats. Pain bloomed across his ribs as he tried to sit up. His body felt uncooperative, as though he'd been asleep for days, or sedated. The air was stale, tinged with the bitter tang of oxidized metal and something faintly floral, unfamiliar. "You're awake," a calm, melodic voice said from the darkness. He turned his head toward the sound, wincing. A figure stepped into view, tall, graceful, inhuman, skin like brushed amethyst, subtle luminescence beneath its surface. Silver-white hair framed a face both alien and striking. Her eyes glowed faintly, soft and violet, scanning him with quiet intensity. "Rena," he rasped, his voice nearly a whisper. The memory surfaced in fragments, the station alarms, a deafening explosion, a hand pushing him through the hatch of an escape pod. She nodded once, kneeling beside him. "You remember? You dragged me here," he asked, still trying to sit upright. "I rerouted your pod manually. The blast radius was expanding too fast." There wasn't time to argue. His gaze shifted to the surroundings. The walls bore symbols he didn't recognize, etched deeply into dull alloy. The ceiling curved low, cracked in several places. Dust floated lazily in the air. He could hear the faint wheeze of air filtration struggling somewhere in the distance. "Where are we?" he asked. "An underground vault. Old, precursor tech. It activated when my pod synced with the terrain. There was no other shelter nearby." Smith forced his back against the nearest wall, steadying himself. "How long have we been here?" "Approximately 9 hours since impact." He nodded slowly, his head pounding. "And the station?" "Vaporized. Structural failure. We were lucky." He gave a bitter smile. "Depends on your definition of luck." Rena stood fluidly and moved toward a panel embedded in the wall. Her hand passed over it, triggering a faint glow. "Most systems are non-functional. Power is minimal. Communications are unresponsive. The structure is intact, but only barely." Smith's training in xenotech tried to kick in, but his limbs refused to cooperate. "Supplies?" "I salvaged what I could," she replied, retrieving a compact container. She opened it carefully. Inside were sealed rations and crystalline flasks, many of them broken, their contents spoiled or evaporated. "Food is viable for one, for two. Less than 2 days." He exhaled, lips pressed tightly. "Water?" "Drinkable stores are nearly gone. There is some condensation forming in the ceiling joints. I've begun collecting it." Smith looked at her, taking in her posture, tall, composed, but her shoulders were tight, her fingers moving slower than they had moments ago. "Are you injured?" he asked, trying to shift attention from his own failing strength. Rena hesitated. "Not physically. My neural interface was damaged. I cannot regenerate power through standard means. And yet here you are, calm as ever," Smith muttered half to himself. Her eyes met his. "Panic will not fix the situation." Fair point, he thought. Still, his stomach clenched painfully. The stasis chamber had drained him. His metabolism was faster than most species. 2 days without proper intake, and he would begin to fail. He already was. A sharp chill ran down his spine. The vault wasn't built for them. It wasn't built for anyone still breathing. He drew in a slow breath. "We'll figure something out. There's always something." "You speak with certainty," Rena said, tilting her head slightly. He tried to smile, but it faltered. "Let's call it stubbornness, or a refusal to die in a dusty alien basement." Silence stretched between them, not awkward, but weighty, Her gaze softened slightly, though she said nothing. Smith leaned his head back against the wall, eyes closing for a moment. Then he asked quietly, "Why did you come after me?" Rena didn't look away this time. "Because you're not disposable." Her voice held no emotion, but something in her expression flickered, a hint of something unspoken. Maybe loyalty, maybe guilt, maybe something neither of them had words for. The emergency light flickered again, casting them both in blood-red shadow. They were alive, for now, but survival would demand more than luck, or rations, or stubbornness. And something told Smith the worst hadn't started yet. A low metallic groan rolled through the bunker, subtle but unsettling, like the sound of a sleeping giant shifting in its bed. Smith blinked awake, breath shallow. His mouth tasted of dust and dry air. A dull ache pulsed behind his eyes, spreading down his neck like a slow-moving storm. He sat up with effort, limbs trembling. Rena was crouched across the room, examining a fractured wall panel. Pale blue light from the console shimmered faintly across her features. Her silver hair caught the glow, a glowing cascade that framed the determined line of her jaw. She didn't look over as he stirred. "You were unconscious for 20 minutes." Smith pressed his palm to his forehead. "Felt like 20 years. Your vital signs dropped. You're entering the early stages of malnourishment." "Lovely. That'll go well with the headaches." "And nausea." She stood and crossed to him, holding a small container. Inside were thin, jelly-like strips sealed in crystalline wrapping. He took one and bit down. It tasted like synthetic moss mixed with plastic, but he forced himself to chew. "That's the last of the nutrient gel," Rena said. "No more viable packs remain." He paused mid-bite. "Then we're out?" She nodded once. "Completely," Smith sighed, swallowing. "Water?" "A few milliliters from the condensation traps. Not enough for two." He looked around the room, noting the faded markings on the walls and the corrosion creeping up from the floor seams. This place had been buried long before either of them existed. Whatever purpose it once served had faded into oblivion. "So, what's the plan?" he asked, voice flat. Rena moved to another wall and placed her hand on a faint indentation. The surface shimmered, revealing a translucent panel. Behind it, rows of tubes and dormant circuits sat in silence. "I've begun mapping the energy. Flows. There's residual charge within the structure, enough to power minor systems, but not communications, not filtration." Smith forced himself to stand, one hand braced against the wall. "Let me help. You can barely remain upright. I'm still conscious. That's enough qualification at the moment." She didn't argue further. Together they studied the strange array, her slender fingers gliding over the alien interface. Occasionally, the systems responded, pulsing softly beneath her touch like a heartbeat. "Whoever built this," Smith murmured, "they weren't like either of us." "No, the architecture is too advanced. The internal structure reacts to biometric feedback, possibly designed to adapt to emotional input." He gave a sideways glance. "Emotional input?" "It's a theory," she said, distracted. A moment passed in silence, broken only by the faint whir of a fan somewhere behind the walls. "Rena," Smith said quietly, "there's something you're not telling me." Her shoulders stiffened, but she didn't look up. "You've been rationing more strictly than necessary," he continued. "Why?" She didn't speak for a long time. Then she exhaled slowly. "Because your species deteriorates faster in crisis environments, and because I can survive longer on less. You've been starving yourself to extend my time. I made a tactical decision." He stepped closer. "That wasn't your choice to make. It was the logical one." "No," he said, firmer this time. "It was noble and reckless. You're just as important as I am." Finally, she turned, meeting his eyes. You're the only human xenobiologist with direct access to this vault. If we escape, your knowledge could change everything. I am replaceable. Smith shook his head. You're not. Don't say that again. Their standoff was broken by a sharp flicker from the control panel. Several symbols flared briefly, then dimmed. Rena blinked. That's new. Smith leaned. What did you touch? Nothing. It responded to proximity. He reached forward and tapped one of the faint symbols. It glowed. Then several others lit up in sequence, cascading outward like a ripple. The panel vibrated softly under his fingertips. Is it reacting to you? She asked. Maybe. Or maybe it's responding to us. The console pulsed again. As she stepped closer, the glow intensified when their hands brushed against the same symbol. Rena drew in a breath. It's registering shared contact. Maybe this isn't just an emergency shelter, Smith mused. Maybe it's some kind of trust-based system. She looked at him, expression unreadable. If that's true, then it might require more than physical presence. It might require connection. Smith gave a weak laugh. Well, that's ironic. We're starving, and the room wants emotional cooperation. Rena didn't laugh. Her eyes were distant, thoughtful. There is another possibility, she said slowly. He looked at her carefully. Go on. She hesitated. My species possesses a survival adaptation, a biological response developed under extreme conditions. Smith waited. We can generate a restorative substance, she continued, voice steady. It is nutrient-rich, designed to sustain another being during crisis. His brow furrowed. Like, yes, comparable to mammalian lactation, though the mechanism differs. He blinked. You're serious? Rena nodded. The process requires direct contact. It is rarely spoken of, shared only among bonded pairs. The intimacy, it is not easily undone. And you're suggesting, I'm suggesting that you're dying. And I refuse to let that happen if I have any means to prevent it. Smith was quiet, processing. The weight of her words hung between them. This wasn't just survival. This was trust, vulnerability, culture-bending sacrifice. You'd share that with me? He asked gently. Rena held his gaze. Yes, if you're willing to accept it. He gave the smallest nod. Then I trust you, and I accept. The atmosphere inside the vault felt denser, as if gravity itself had thickened. Smith remained still, heart thudding against his ribs, unsure whether it was anticipation or exhaustion that made him dizzy. Rena stood across from him, hands relaxed at her sides, though her expression betrayed a quiet storm beneath her calm surface. She stepped forward, measured and deliberate, until they were only a breath apart. Her scent, subtle and mineral sweet, reminded him of rain on stone. Her gaze searched his face, studying every flicker of hesitation, every tremor behind his eyes. You must remain calm, she said softly, her voice smooth as distant thunder. Agitation will hinder the process. I'm trying, he whispered, his throat dry. It's not exactly easy, you know. I am aware, she replied. This isn't easy for me either. Her hand rose, fingers brushing his forehead. The contact was feather-light but electric. Heat bloomed beneath his skin, followed by a spreading coolness that soothed like flowing water. Smith's muscles loosened under her touch, his thoughts quieting. What happens now? He asked. Rena didn't answer immediately. She turned slightly, reaching for the side of her neck. A faint shimmer spread across her skin, bioluminescent patterns surfacing like living constellations. Her skin shifted hue, deepening from soft indigo to a richer violet, as if her body responded to some internal signal. We begin, she said at last, her voice lower, almost melodic. Smith watched as her bioluminescence intensified, casting soft glows across the chamber walls. The light pulsed in rhythm with her breathing, slow and even. Then she extended her arm, offering it with quiet reverence. Contact. Initiates the production, she explained. Trust enables the flow. He nodded slowly, lifting his hand to meet hers. Their palms touched, and a faint warmth passed between them. Something unseen stirred beneath the surface of his skin, responding to the contact. His vision blurred briefly as an unfamiliar sensation washed over him, like hearing music underwater, disjointed yet beautiful. Rena closed her eyes and inhaled deeply. A soft, luminescent mist formed between them, coalescing into a delicate droplet suspended in the air. The sphere hovered, iridescent and impossibly light, before drifting gently toward Smith's lips. Without speaking, he understood what to do. He opened his mouth slightly, allowing the droplet to enter. It melted on his tongue, neither liquid nor solid, dissolving with a warmth that spread through his body like sunrise after an endless night. He gasped, knees almost buckling from the surge of vitality. The haze in his mind lifted. Colors around him sharpened. His heartbeat, once erratic, settled into a calm, steady rhythm. Muscles no longer screamed with fatigue. That was, he began. Only the first, Rena said quietly. There must be more to restore balance. Another droplet formed between them, then another. He accepted each one, letting the substance flow into him, each wave pushing back the grip of stasis and starvation. With every pulse of energy, the room itself seemed to react. Wall engravings flickered faintly, humming with resonance, almost like approval. As the process continued, Smith began to sense more than just physical renewal. Flashes of sensation flickered at the edge of his awareness, not his memories, but hers. Mountains under twin suns. The scent of crystalline air. Laughter in a language he didn't know but somehow understood. Am I seeing your thoughts? He asked, awed. Echoes, she replied. Fragments of my experience. The bond isn't mental in the way your species defines it. It's emotional, sensorial, intuitive. Our minds aren't merging, but our awarenesses are brushing. He didn't know how to respond. He simply let it happen. One final droplet formed, glowing brighter than the others. As it passed to him, something deep inside shifted. The bond between them solidified. Not a chain, but a thread, spun from shared need, trust, and something unnamed. Rena stepped back, slowly exhaling. The glow on her skin began to dim, but her eyes remained bright, reflecting something deeper than light. You should feel stronger now, she said. I do, Smith answered, voice steady for the first time in hours. More than I expected, like I'm not alone in my own body. You're not, she said simply. Not entirely. He regarded her in silence. Gratitude warred with a dozen other emotions he couldn't name. Admiration, wonder, something closer to awe. She had broken one of her society's most sacred boundaries, for him, not out of obligation, out of choice. This changes things, doesn't it? He said eventually. Yes, she replied, in more ways than either of us can fully understand right now. Smith took a step closer. Are you all right? That took a toll on you. I am fatigued, she admitted. But the process is designed to replenish over time. As long as you remain stable, I will recover. He hesitated, then said quietly, You didn't have to do this. You could have let nature run its course. I could have, Rena replied, her voice gentle but resolute. But I didn't want to. Their eyes met again, and this time the silence between them carried a new weight. Not fear, not uncertainty, but acknowledgement. Something had been exchanged beyond nutrients and energy. Connection. Smith turned toward the glowing control panel. So what now? Rena followed his gaze. Now, we see what the vault remembers. The symbols etched into the vault walls no longer felt like random ornamentation. They pulsed faintly in patterns, some almost breathing, others ticking with mechanical rhythm. Smith moved slowly through the chamber. the weight in his limbs replaced with an unfamiliar lightness, like walking through a dream on the edge of waking. The energy Raina had transferred into him still lingered, not just as strength in his muscles or clarity in his thoughts, but in something deeper, like an invisible thread pulling at his awareness, a connection humming softly at the edge of his perception. And at the center of that hum was her. Rena stood beside a vertical console embedded into the floor, her fingers dancing across glyphs that shifted with each touch. The interface responded not to command lines, but to proximity, emotion, even intention. He watched as she paused, adjusted her breath, and the entire panel reconfigured. "It's not a machine in the traditional sense," she murmured, her eyes scanning the symbols. "It reacts like an organism, responsive, selective." "Like it thinks?" Smith asked, stepping closer. "Perhaps, or at least, recognizes." Smith placed his hand lightly against the wall. The moment his skin made contact, lines radiated outward, glowing in a steady, deliberate sequence. It felt like being observed, weighed, and then accepted. He pulled his hand back slowly. "It likes me." Rena glanced at him, the corners of her mouth lifting just slightly. "More accurately, it recognizes that we are bonded. That connection may be acting as a key." Smith folded his arms, watching the light ripple through the glyphs. "You think this place was built to respond to relationships?" "Not just relationships," she said thoughtfully. "Alignment. Resonance between individuals. Something that transcends language or species. That's a lot to build a bunker around." "I don't believe it's merely a bunker," she replied, pressing a new sequence on the panel. A deep tone vibrated through the floor, and a section of the far wall shuddered before splitting apart. Dust fell in lazy spirals as a narrow corridor revealed itself beyond the stone. Smith raised an eyebrow. "You're sure you didn't just activate a death trap?" Rena said nothing, already moving toward the threshold. He followed, ducking slightly as the corridor narrowed. Faint light bloomed from the walls, not from bulbs, but from veins of mineral glowing softly beneath the surface. As they stepped deeper inside, the temperature dropped. Not unpleasantly, but with a precision that felt intentional, as though the environment were adapting to their presence. Rena's bioluminescence began to return, casting shifting shadows along the corridor as they moved. The hallway opened into a circular chamber. The walls curved upward into a dome, and at the center stood a massive structure, a pillar wrapped in coiling lines of light. Suspended above it, a lattice of floating geometric patterns hung like a slow-motion explosion, spinning in perfect silence. Smith walked forward, drawn by the silent beauty of the design. "What is this?" "A core node," Rena said from behind him. "A neural heart of the facility." He studied the floating lattice. Each shape pulsed at a different frequency, colors shifting in a mesmerizing sequence. "It looks alive," he whispered. "It may be," Rena replied, "in a way we don't yet comprehend." She approached the pillar and extended her fingers toward a glowing arc. As her hand hovered near the surface, the patterns reoriented, forming a spiral that extended outward like a blossoming flower. A projection spilled across the chamber, a vast map filled with thousands of pinpoints connected by glimmering strands. Smith's jaw tightened in amazement. "Those are locations." "Yes." "Across the planet?" "No," she said, voice low. "Across the galaxy." Smith turned slowly, staring at the web of lights hovering around them. "This isn't a bunker." "No," she said again. "It's a hub." He took a breath. "Then the vault is part of a larger network. A transportation array, maybe, or a memory repository, possibly both." Rena moved to another segment of the console. "But none of this can be activated without a stable bond. These systems respond to shared biological and emotional energy. Singular intent isn't enough." "And we triggered it by accident?" She shook her head. Not accident. Alignment. Smith looked up at the projection again. So, if we connect to this system, what happens? Unclear, she admitted. But it could allow communication across systems, maybe even transit. Could also fry us where we stand, he said. But he wasn't stepping away. She looked at him then, her expression unreadable. It could. He stepped beside her anyway. You think this structure was waiting for someone like us? Possibly, she said. Or maybe it simply recognizes cooperation when it sees it. Smith rested his fingers against the nearest arc of light. It pulsed once, and he felt the bond between them echo, like the facility could feel what they shared. Not just the survival instinct, not just the healing, but the silent promises threaded between moments. The trust, the growing understanding, something more. He turned to Rena. We should be cautious. I agree. But I also think we're here for a reason. She hesitated, then nodded. As do I. They stood in silence as the projection slowly rotated around them. The light painted their faces in shifting hues, blue, gold, violet. Smith watched Rena's profile, her eyes fixed on the floating lattice, her features caught between awe and restraint. And he realized then, she wasn't just connected to him. She was connected to this place somehow, like it recognized her as well. Or maybe it recognized what she had become since saving him. I've never felt anything like this, he said. You weren't meant to, she replied. Not alone, and... In that moment, under a sky made of maps and memory, Smith finally understood. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were the key. The glowing map hovered silently before them, an intricate web of stars and light stretching across the vastness of space. Smith's fingers traced the shimmering threads, awestruck by the realization that this ancient vault was far more than a shelter. It was a gateway, a nexus of cosmic pathways waiting to be unlocked. Rena stood close, her presence a calming counterpoint to the overwhelming magnitude of their discovery. The soft bioluminescence of her skin flickered in harmony with the pulses of the map, as if the network itself acknowledged her touch. Her eyes, pools of violet light, reflected a mixture of wonder and cautious excitement. This network, Smith said, voice barely above a whisper, it's designed to connect entire star systems, faster than light travel, communication, maybe even more. Rena nodded, fingers lightly caressing a complex array of symbols on the console. The energy required to activate this fully is immense. It's sustained only through shared biological resonance. The bond we forged is the key. Smith's mind reeled with the implications. They had unwittingly tapped into a technology that could revolutionize interstellar travel. Yet the risks were clear. Overuse or miscalculation could collapse the delicate balance, destroying not just the vault, but potentially destabilizing entire star routes. A sudden flicker in the chamber's lighting broke their reverie. Warning signals flashed across the console, alarms faint but unmistakable. Rena's expression tightened. Life support is failing faster than predicted. Oxygen reserves will run out within hours unless we act. Smith clenched his jaw, muscles taut. We need to stabilize the power core, redirect energy from the network to sustain critical systems. Rena's fingers danced over the controls, weaving complex commands in her native script. The pillar at the chamber's center pulsed. More rapidly, responding to their input, streams of light surged along the connecting circuits, infusing the vault with renewed vigor. Despite the immediate danger, Smith felt a renewed strength coursing through him. The restorative bond from Rena's gift was more than physical sustenance. It was a wellspring of clarity and resolve. His mind snapped into sharp focus, scanning schematics and alien data with newfound understanding. Together, they worked in tandem, blending human ingenuity with alien technology. Rena's knowledge of xenobiology and the vault's ancient tech combined with Smith's engineering prowess. The synergy between them was palpable, an unspoken harmony born from trust and shared purpose. Minutes blurred into an eternity as they stabilized failing components, rerouted circuits, and calibrated delicate systems. Each success was met with a flicker of light or a soft hum, a sign that the vault acknowledged their efforts. At one point, Smith caught Rena watching him closely, a subtle smile touching her lips. He returned the gesture, feeling the warmth of connection pulse between them stronger than any machine's power. But the strain was growing. Rena's glowing skin dimmed, her movements slowing. Smith reached out, catching her arm gently. "You're weakening," he said softly. "You need rest." She shook her head with quiet determination. "If we don't finish this, none of us survive." He nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "Then we finish. Together." The final stage required perfect synchronization, a flow of energy from both of them that would resonate with the vault's core. They positioned themselves before the glowing pillar, hands clasped, breaths steady. Smith focused on their connection, the threads of trust, survival, and something deeper weaving between their minds. The vault thrummed in response, its energy building to a crescendo. Rena's skin ignited in a cascade of light, brighter than before. Smith felt a surge of warmth flood his chest, a power unlike anything he'd ever known. Their bond expanded, a luminous bridge that transcended the boundaries of flesh and star stuff. The vault shuddered beneath their feet, symbols racing across the walls in a dazzling display. Energy cascaded like liquid fire, swirling around them. As the ancient system awoke, Smith's vision blurred, memories and sensations flooding his consciousness. Not his own, but Rena's. And then the vaults. He glimpsed star systems connected by invisible threads, civilizations rising and falling, and the endless dance of light and shadow in the cosmos. When the storm of sensation subsided, he found himself gasping, still linked to Rena by the shimmering thread. Their hands squeezed tightly, anchoring each other in the overwhelming moment. "We've done it," Rena breathed. "The network is active." Smith nodded, awe and exhaustion mingling. But at a cost. The vault trembled violently, warning. Alarms blaring. Systems were pushed beyond limits, straining under the flow of energy. "Life support is failing," Rena warned urgently. "We must redirect power immediately or face suffocation." Smith moved quickly, rerouting energy from the active network to vital life support components. The chamber stabilized, the alarms quieting to a dull hum. They collapsed together on the floor, breathing heavily, bodies spent but minds alight with hope. Suddenly the vault's outer doors hissed open, revealing a fleet of ships descending in the sky above. Brilliant beams of light flooded the chamber. Rena's eyes widened in disbelief. "Our rescue has arrived." Smith looked at her, gratitude and something more shining in his gaze. Their journey had brought them here, not just as survivors, but as pioneers of a new connection between species and stars. As they were escorted aboard the lead ship, their bond remained unbroken, a symbol of unity that defied distance and difference. In the quiet moments that followed, Smith reached out, fingers brushing Rena's hand. The spark that ignited was a promise that no matter where the future took them, their connection would endure. Together, they had unlocked secrets long buried beneath the ash and silence. Together, they had become the key to the stars. The chamber thrummed with an energy that reverberated through every fiber of Smith's being. It was a hum older than memory, a pulse that echoed the heartbeat of the cosmos itself. Between him and Rena, a radiant thread of light flickered and danced, their bond now tangible, almost alive. This was no longer just a connection of survival. It was a key to awakening an ancient power long dormant. Rena's skin shimmered with ethereal patterns, glowing softly in response to the surging force around them. Her eyes, bright pools of violet, held a mixture of awe and caution. "This energy," she breathed, It surpasses anything recorded in my people's history. The network resonates with our bond, magnifying it beyond expectation. Smith took a deep breath, steadying himself. If our connection can awaken this system, then we owe it to ourselves, and to everyone out there, to see it through. Whatever the cost. Their fingers intertwined, and the light between them intensified, spilling over the chamber walls. The central pillar pulsed with growing strength as the intricate geometric lattice above spun faster, scattering sparkling motes of luminescence into the air. Smith's mind raced, piecing together the cosmic design before him. It's a map, a lattice connecting distant stars and worlds, enabling travel and communication across unimaginable distances. Rena's voice was a soft vibration in the charged air. Our bond acts as the catalyst. This facility recognizes compatible pairs, harnessing their shared life force to power the network. The thought was staggering. Two beings from vastly different worlds, linked through trust and survival, fueling a galactic web lost to time. Suddenly, a shrill alarm shattered the chamber's calm. The floor trembled, dust cascading from cracked stones overhead. Rena grasped Smith's arm, her glowing patterns flickering erratically. "The life support systems are destabilizing," she warned, urgency lacing her voice. "Oxygen levels are plummeting. We have minutes before critical failure." Smith's eyes narrowed, resolve hardening. "We redirect the energy, channel the network's power to sustain the vault's essential systems." Rena nodded, drawing strength from his determination. Together, they rushed to the control console, their minds synchronized through the bond. Fingers flew across alien symbols, initiating complex commands. The pillar responded immediately, its rhythmic pulse stabilizing to a calm, steady beat. Energy flowed between them, weaving their essence into the machine's core. Their consciousnesses brushed lightly, memories, fears, and hopes mingling in silent harmony. It was an exchange beyond words, a fusion of two souls fighting for a shared future. Time lost meaning as they labored side by side, balancing delicate energies and repairing failing circuits. Each success was marked by a flicker of light, a hum of approval from the ancient system. The vault seemed to awaken, responding to the strength of their unity. At one moment, Smith caught Rena's gaze, her eyes sparkling with quiet pride and exhaustion. He smiled back, feeling the warmth of their connection outshine any machine's power. But the strain was undeniable. Rena's glowing skin dimmed, her movement slowed. Smith grasped her gently. "You're weakening. Please, rest." She shook, her head with fierce resolve. "If we don't finish this, none of us survive." He swallowed hard, nodding. "Then we finish it, together." Preparing for the final surge, they stood before the pillar, hands clasped, breaths measured. Smith, focused on the bond, the trust and vulnerability that had blossomed from desperation and hope. The vault vibrated, energy rising to a crescendo. Rena's skin flared with radiant light. Smith felt warmth swell in his chest, power unlike anything he'd known before. Their bond expanded, a luminous bridge spanning species and stars, transcending every boundary. The chamber shuddered as symbols raced across the walls in a brilliant cascade. Energy flowed like liquid fire, swirling around them in a breathtaking storm of light. Smith's vision blurred, memories and sensations flooding his mind. Not his own, but Rena's, and then the very consciousness of the vault. He glimpsed star systems connected by threads of trust, civilizations born and fading, the eternal dance of light and shadow. When the tempest subsided, he gasped, still linked to Rena by their glowing thread. Their fingers tightened, anchoring one another through the overwhelming moment. "We did it," Rena whispered, voice trembling with relief. Smith nodded, awe and exhaustion mingling in his gaze. But at a cost. The vault groaned violently, alarms blaring as systems strained against the surge. Rena's voice rose urgently. Life support is failing. We must divert power now or we suffocate. Smith moved swiftly, rerouting energy from the network to critical systems. The chamber steadied. Alarms faded to a distant murmur. They collapsed, breathless and spent, their bodies drained but their spirits intertwined. Suddenly the vault's massive doors slid open with a hiss. Brilliant light flooded the chamber, silhouetting a fleet of sleek ships descending from above. Organic designs merged with cutting-edge technology. Rena's eyes widened in disbelief. Our rescue has arrived. Smith's gaze locked with hers, gratitude and something deeper shining between them. They had transcended mere survival. Together they had become the key to unlocking forgotten wonders and bridging the gulf between worlds. As medical teams swarmed to assist, Smith reached out, brushing fingers against Rena's. The spark ignited anew, a promise that no matter where destiny led, their bond would endure. The ship ascended, stars blazing past the viewport. Smith looked at Rena and whispered, We're not just survivors anymore. We're the future. She smiled softly, her glowing skin radiant with hope. Together, we will change everything.